I just came up with an idea of a LEGO mock building challenge you have never seen before. I bought this LEGO Around the World part box. It includes a total of 950 pieces and I'm going to build 10 mocks using only these pieces. So let's take a look what's inside this box. It comes with a poster, 7 numbered bags and instructions to build some small models. But we don't need those, so let's throw them away. Besides the 7 numbered bags, we get 6 bags full of random pieces. So let's see what we can build. To make the building process easier, I've opened all bags and took a closer look what pieces I got. The first thing I want to build is something like this you can see on the screen right now. To prove that I don't use pieces which aren't included in the box, I'll show you how I grab all of them. Since the part selection is pretty limited, I've decided to build a model using only black pieces. Once we found all the needed parts, it's time to build a model. I've started building the track, then continued building the main body of the vehicle by adding these several bricks. And finally, we were able to build a weapons system. Since we are building in micro scale, everything is small and tiny. To make it look like it's actually firing a rocket, I've grabbed this antenna piece. Now I just had to add this to the rest of the vehicle and boom, we are done. But the vehicle itself feels kind of empty, so I've decided to build a small landscape for it. You know the drill, I only grab pieces from the part box. I've decided to build a freeform snow scenery for a freshly made vehicle. After placing regular and wedge blades, the build was already done. I just had to add the vehicle. Next I'm going to build a scene where the SWAT member just captured this criminal. But let's grab all the needed pieces first. My idea is to build a green freeform and the entrance of a villa. The base of the build is going to be this 4x8 plate. To create the round border, I've used these 1x4 curved slopes. After adding modified bricks at the left and right, I was able to attach the curved slopes at the sides as well. Once the freeform was done, it was time to build the actual entrance of the house. To achieve a clean look, I've decided to build it in white. The use of slopes helps creating a more interesting look of the entrance. Once the pillars were done, it was time to connect them by adding a roof, and the blue parts helped creating a contrast. Now we just had to add our minifigures and the second build was done. I've always wanted to build a jet and this building challenge was perfect to do so. I'll try to recreate an F-35 as best as I can. The part box doesn't come with a lot of dark bluish grey pieces, but I think it's enough to recreate this jet. And here are all the pieces which I'm going to need for my model. As the main body of the F-35 is only 1 brick thick, I have to use a lot of these modified bricks to attach all the wings. The plane itself is done, but I want to build a cool display stand for it as well. I made it by attaching this bar piece to a modified brick and also added this modified brick here at the model. And now the build is complete. As I'm well known for LEGO World War II builds, I had to include one in this video. I've grabbed this German soldier holding a tiny cigarette. I want to build a brown landscape as well as a black border for this build, so let's grab all the needed pieces first. And here are all of them we need for the first half of the build. Since the set comes with a limited amount of black slopes, I had to improvise and use different types of slopes for the border. For the groundwork, the brown wedged plates came in pretty handy. Now it's time to build a wall of a house in the background. To make the build look more interesting, I've decided to use some unique colors. And here are all the pieces we are going to need to finish the mock. So let's add them to the base of the build. I start building the base of the house by using this light bluish grey bricks and continued using these yellow bricks. Because I didn't like the plain look of the wall, I've decided to add a small balcony including some flowers. Once this was finished, I just had to add a red roof and the build was done. I have to say that I really like the calm atmosphere of this build. I am a huge fan of the new El Dorado fortress, but my resources are again pretty limited, so we had to build a micro-scale version. I've started building the entrance for the fortress and this small door just works perfectly for this. Once this was done, it was time to build all the required walls. I grabbed basically all light bluish grey and white pieces I was able to find. I've started building the front part of the fortress, including a tower. This small white roof piece at the top creates some cool texturing. And to round the design of the tower up, I've added this black cylinder piece. I mirrored the wall we just made and put everything together, but there's still a lot of work left. Next I'm going to build a big tower for the middle of the fortress. To To hold everything in place, I've used this 2x6 plate for the base, and the black flag at the top fits perfectly with the black roofs of the small towers. But the fortress still looks kind of plain, so I've decided to add some greenery to the left and right. I've again used 2x6 plates for the base of this build. These green parts are supposed to look like hills, that's why I've used a lot of slopes. And after some final touches, they are done and ready to connect to the fortress. I have to say that this probably is my most favorite build so far, but stay tuned, there are still coming more. Next I want to build something I have never built before. I'm going to build a traditional Japanese temple. I came up with this idea because I think these black roof pieces just work perfectly for builds like this. Speaking of this, let's build it real quick. Next I've grabbed the white and red pieces to build the walls of the first house. Once this was done, I've made an archway including some cool gold colored studs. The buildings are done, now it's time to build a landscape where I can put them in. And here are all the pieces I need for this. The grey steps lead into the building and worked into a rock. I've grabbed all the light and dark bluish grey slopes which I had left and created a small rock formation. And the top of the rock ends up with some light green tiles. After adding some small bonsai trees and the freshly made buildings, the mock is done. I found 4 tires, so I've decided to build a small jeep using them. As I don't have a lot of black parts left, the design of it is pretty simple. After preparing both axes, it was time to connect them by using this 2x6 plate and adding some small details to make it actually look like a jeep. But I have to say that this car looks pretty trashy, so let's get rid of it. Two famous LEGO themes are Star Wars and Castle, so I just had to build something for them. Let's start with the Star Wars build, and I already have a cool and unique idea what I'm going to build. But let's grab all the required pieces first. My plan is to build a small landing pad where clone troopers waiting for their ship. And here are all the pieces I need for this. I definitely have to improvise, but I really like the challenge of having not too many bricks to build. I've decided to use headlight bricks to turn the direction of the plates. The construction is definitely not the easiest one, but I really like the end result of it. As you can see, the whole landing pad is built with bricks turned 180 degrees. And after adding some final details which are supposed to be pipes, the build was done. I've also modified my 541st Trooper by adding blue arms, a black head, and this brick arms DC-15 blaster. After adding this clone trooper to the landing pad as well as another one, the build was 100% completed. Let's continue with the castle's build, which is going to be a training place for a Black Falcon Knight. I will build a small green field and a fence in the back. After grabbing all the required pieces, we are ready to build the mock. I've started building the base area by using these green and black plates. And to hold everything in place, I've added these green bricks underneath. Now it's time to build a fence, and I've created this by using brown and white pieces to create an interesting pattern. To round it up, I've used these curved slopes at the top. And after adding modified bricks to the fence, I was able to attach it to the ground area. For some extra detail, I've created this mast carrying a flag. To make the ground look more interesting, I've added some round plates and G-slopes. The final build is the most part-intensive one. I will build a 19th century harbor including a cargo ship. Most of the buildings and the ship are going to be brown, but I also need blue parts to build the sea. And after selecting all the parts, we can start building. First, the ship has to be made, and these are all the pieces which are required for this. I've started building the base of the ship by using several plates and tiles. To achieve the typical shape of a ship, I've used these curved slopes for the front and the back part. The grey plate with the handle in the back is supposed to be the captain's cabin. The mix of the 10 cylinder pieces and the grey antenna pieces are supposed to be masts. Unfortunately, I wasn't able to build a canvas. But let's build a harbor by start creating the sea. Because I ran out of blue plates, I had to use some different colored ones, but don't worry, you won't see them in the final result. Once the base was done, it was time to build the actual harbor. Because it had to be raised, I've started using these reddish brown bricks. Once this was done, it was time to build walls, small buildings and this tower. To create a contrast, I've added this dark blue roof. All I had to build now was a dock for the ship, and I created this by using dark bluish grey slopes connected by a blue tile. Let's add the ship and some final touches like these G-slopes in the back and some studs to create waves. Here we go, the 10th build is done and the challenge is completed. And here are all 10 builds made only out of bricks from the LEGO Around the World part box.